Good job. Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, so by the end of this, you will be living in huts and drinking gutter water. But no, that's not true. I'll quickly... but of course, the moment when it's all meant to happen never does. There we go. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land in which we gather upon and pay our respects to our elders past and present. As the custodians of the land, I'd like to acknowledge that everywhere I go, particularly in places like Australia, and I've spent a lot of time up in First Nations communities, etc. Also, for today, you can tweet about this if you wish. We're going with the hashtag GPP Canada, and our catch thing for GPP is the GPP Twitter. I'll kick it off with the video now, a quick introduction about the Global Poverty Projects, and then have a chat to you on the other side of that. Hopefully less dramas on Twitter.
One of my dreams is to see a world where people don't have to lack anything, where every child goes to school, where everyone can have access to medical services, where there's no difference between a man and a woman in terms of participation. It's a world where there is no poverty anymore.
The vision of the Global Poverty Project is a world without extreme poverty within a generation. We aim to engage, inspire and equip you with the tools you will need to take action, and in doing so we will demonstrate that the smallest efforts, when combined with the efforts of others all over the world, really will make a major difference. By increasing the number and effectiveness of people working towards the same goal, you can be part of the global movement that can see an end to extreme poverty within a generation.
Cool, so there you go, that's a quick introduction about the Global Poverty Project. So I think the quintessential thing out of all of that is that we aim to increase the number and effectiveness of people taking action to end extreme poverty. And that's where social justice is a critical tool for us to be able to engage people and move them along so that their engagement is effective as well. And it's really important to have both of those angles. Today's presentation is really about the practical application of social media for social justice. And like I said earlier, I'm not a social media expert, but I'm just going to be sharing the ways that we utilise social media for the outreach with our campaigns and our ideas and our education and what we do. So my name is Darcy Lunn. I'm a teacher from Australia once upon a time, in case you hadn't quite picked up on my beautiful Adelaide accent. But for me, you know, I first started off volunteering in developing countries many years ago. You can see I was a bit younger back then. But when I was in developing countries, learning from the people, here in Kyrgyzstan many years ago, and then more recently in Ethiopia, for me it was about, you know, how can I translate these experiences and these things that I'd learned from people in extreme poverty, how could I translate that into action, particularly in my own country? And so what I used to do, keeps on skipping, sorry. So what I used to do is jump on a bicycle and go for a ride around the place. So I rode around New Zealand, around the South Island of New Zealand, and just gave presentations and shared the kinds of things that I'd learned from people in extreme poverty with school groups and communities and that sort of thing. And then that was back in 2006. I did my first cycling trip around Australia, then one in New Zealand, and I continue to do them every so often. And it's a great tool to engage with people. But in the last bicycle trip that I did in Portland, Oregon, from Portland up to Whistler and back, I was doing it with a whole lot of social justice, social media as well. Count how many times I stuffed that one up tonight. you know, Twittering and Facebooking and all those sorts of things on that journey and blogging every day, and people really following that journey with me and joining into it, and also encouraging me and looking at really quick time responses for what were you feeling at this time, what are you going to do tomorrow, that kind of thing. That level of interaction from anywhere in the world is just phenomenal. So I personally have been lucky to realise and relish just the importance and how much outreach you can have with something like social media. And when I can't be in developing countries working with the people, I love representing them. And that's why I got involved with the Global Poverty Project, is because when I'm not there on the face, working with people face to face and learning, etc., I love to be out there sharing my stories and being their representative, because I know that they can't be out there, at least not these days at the moment, representing themselves. But another thing about social media is that in some of these countries where people are leapfrogging in technology and getting ahead of the game. So it's not long until, you know, these kids in Kyrgyzstan will be Facebooking and tweeting and having Google Hangouts with us, you know, in, you know, who knows, a year, 2 years less from now. So it's really exciting, the potential of social media for social justice. And I do get excited, which is great, but for me it was around, this is at the end of one of my bicycle trips, was knowing that, you know, it took me ages. I rode a bike for 3,000 kilometres and enjoyed it and had a really sore ass and all that kind of thing. But the thing is that it taught me that the actions that I was taking in my own community, and now even in our own homes, can be just as important, just as significant, and just as empowering as anything we may wish to do in Africa or these sorts of places. And I actually personally think the more we do in our own community, in our own private lives for social justice through social media, is probably more effective than anything we could possibly do in developing countries, taking up their space. They're the experts in their countries. So that's why I'm having a chat to you this evening. And also, this simple formula keeps it right on task. That small actions multiplied by lots of people can and will create big change. And again, this is where social media is one of those critical tools, because it's a tiny action. You know, click on a petition, read a tweet. Those little things add up when you get enough people on that same sort of tangent. So I absolutely believe in the power of social media, even to the smallest nth degree. Like I said, I'm not a social media expert, in fact very far from it, and I think by being 34 years old it kind of puts you out of being able to qualify as a social media expert. But luckily there are people out there who are social media experts. The Social Bride, these guys are fantastic. JD, who runs this, is an incredible resource. It's all for free. You can download stuff like, you know, 10 steps to a successful campaign, all these kinds of things. So definitely check out socialbright.org. And I'm not going to go into any of this at all today, because I'm only looking at the practical application of social media. The theory and the science is all there for you, and that's up to you guys to do your own study on, which I should probably do as well. I do as much as possible. But our strength is this one. It's in a presentation. So in our presentation, we go through 5 questions, taking people on a journey from knowing about the topics and issues of extreme poverty to acting upon them, moving people from sympathy to empathy, moving people from charity to justice, moving people from apathy to action, these kinds of things. And this is what this presentation does so well for us. So, you know, what is extreme poverty? Well, extreme poverty isn't just about, you know, poor people living on less than $1.25 per day. And that's one facet. But really it's more than just money. It's about having access to food, to clean drinking water, being able to go to a clinic or see a doctor, being able to get an education and go to school, and being able to have your own living. You know, these are the components of extreme poverty. So for now, I'm just going to kind of go through the presentation that I usually give to contextualise the social media that we use today. If you've got questions and stuff, feel free to throw them out there as well. So here's a beautiful thing. You know, back 200 years ago, more than 50% in the 1850s, 50% of the people in the UK lived in extreme poverty. But thanks to, you know, the industrial model with heavily polluting industry and those sorts of things, we were able to move people out of extreme poverty very slowly and very dirtily. That's definitely not a word. But you know, heavily polluting and those sorts of things. Whereas these days, using a digital model, we can see that people using technologies like mobile phones, solar energy, all these sorts of things, we can leapfrog people out of extreme poverty in a much faster time and much cleaner way. Okay? And this is where social media again comes into that realm, utilising these technologies. You know, social media for social good is something I like to say often. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Another great resource for you, I'm not sure if anyone knows Hans Rosling. If you've ever seen any of his TED Talks, they're phenomenal. Now Hans is a Swedish professor and he talks about graphs and he probably wears you know, sandals with socks, but he is an incredibly interesting guy. He just makes these graphs sing and dance all over the place. It's a really good resource for people to draw upon those things and then share them with your friends and your networks, that kind of thing. Here's a couple of quick stats for you. Most people wouldn't know this, but back in 1981, 52% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. Now in 2005, that's down to 25%. And I was saying, like, I mean, I'm 34 years old, but even in my lifetime, the percentage of people living in extreme poverty has halved, just in my lifetime. So it's something that we don't often hear about, you know, the good things. And this is what we try to do with the Global Poverty Project. It's not always the bad, you know, it's a sad story or it's a guilt trip or we're going to ask you for money, but actually highlighting the things that do make a big difference. And these are the stats that we like to draw upon. For example, this is the percentage of people having access to clean drinking water in the country of Ghana in Western Africa. So Ghana recently, you know, elected a government from the people and the government's working with the people to get them out of extreme poverty. We're not talking about people owning fast cars and big TVs. It's about just the simple things in life like having access to clean drinking water. People can drink the water, not get sick, not miss out on school, not miss out on work, those sorts of things. This is another graph I love to show there to the skeptics. Of people, oh, you know, if you're going around and we're saving people and we're ending extreme poverty, there's going to be too many people in the world. Well, actually, statistically, it's shown that the more developed a country becomes, the less children per mother that people tend to have in general. I'm the youngest of 6, so it didn't quite work for us, but anyway. But this is true, exactly for the case of Thailand. You know, an average of 6.34 children per mother back in the 60s, and down to, you know, 1.81 children per mother these days, by having access to family planning, education, good nutrition, these sorts of things. So going around and saving the world is actually a productive thing to do on our world population and with our resources as well. So this is a bit of a question we'd like to throw out there, and I'm going to throw this one at you as well. So back in 2005, this is the latest World Bank statistics that we have, 25% of the world's population, about 1.4 billion people, lived in extreme poverty. It's a huge number. But at the Global Poverty Project, we want to see that get down to 0. So I'd like for you guys to have a chat amongst yourselves at the moment and just see if, you know, what have you heard about, or what do you know that might see this become a reality? And in particular, look through the lens of social media. What are some of the things that you know that you think might do this? Say good day to the person next to you. You don't have to say good day, you can say hello. And have a chat. And what do you reckon about this one? How do we end extreme poverty? Not like that, but you know, some of the ideas anyway. Simple question for you. Off you go. So get the answer wrong.
I'm not sure,
We'll give you another 30 seconds. Have you seen if it's working on the page and stuff? Do you know if anyone's actually watching? Like
no, probably not.
being in a forest, not seeing the trees.
Worst comes to worst, plus like the internet. Second, the connection's a little slow.
And the link that I sent to N10, is that going, oh, you got this right? Oh no, the one that's going to N10, that link's to that. Because that's the link I was using all the time. But I mean, it has the link to that, doesn't it? Cool. Right, and I'm getting absolutely blasted with light here. I've got sunlight off the table and looking straight into a projector. Alrighty. Cool. So yeah, who's got the answer? How do we end extreme poverty? With social media. Simple question. Thoughts, ideas? Hard work, yeah. Any ideas, thoughts?
One of the things that we were talking about is how the world becomes kind of a smaller place. So rather than, you may be in the US and you may have enough money and stuff, but you're just that much closer to someone who doesn't have money. So the net kind of eliminates the middleman and makes it easy to transfer those funds and to know the impact that that's making.
Overseas remittances has skyrocketed because the fees have dropped and the practicalities of it is done. $20 in a monetary sense. Yeah. We're not only talking about money here.
Social media makes it easier for people to be ambassadors for different causes. It's not about standing on the street corner of a sign anymore. Sometimes it's just retweeting something or posting something on your Facebook wall. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be an advocate from your armchair.
To kind of add to that, I think it's the aspect of relationships is really key. So that, for example, if I tweet something or post something on my Facebook wall, even people who are inundated with information may pay more attention to it because of the relationship they have with me and trust, or So I think a lot of people respond to that and act because it's a friend of theirs who knows something about this and sharing the information.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I would kind of summarize that by saying strengthened and maybe more immediate networks than we might have had sometimes in the past. And internationally, globally, within seconds. Yes. So I didn't ever ask your name at the back.
Oh, name. Right. You wanted me to mention what I was just saying?
Yeah.
I suppose if you use the example of lies, you can cause political regime change and pretty much try to fix poverty that way, forcing change in government. So using social media that way is proven to be quite effective for your cause optimization.
Yeah. if you're if you've got 15 million members and you decide to go for some systemic political change, then Avaz is kind of the woman that you need. And that's fantastic. I mean, we've always sort of thought that social media is this grassroots thing, but when you have 1 million people behind one idea, it can carry some clout. And I think Avaz is a great example of that. And then the offshoots of Avaz that we generally have in each country as well, that can strengthen on local topics and issues as well, is just as prevalent. Cool. All right, nice one. Well, luckily we're not the first people to ever sit down at a table and go, hey, yeah, we should end extreme poverty. Nice idea, that one. Back in the year 2000, all of our world leaders gathered together and they agreed upon a set of 8 goals, the Millennium Development Goals. Basically, the more that we know about the MDGs, the better equipped we are to take effective action to end extreme poverty. So, and in a social media sense, each one of these areas represents, tangible ideas that are working. We didn't just halve extreme poverty by luck and by chance. We did it through bad programs, but we did it mainly through knowing what works and working with people on a more close level, on a closer level. And then being able to reiterate those things and supporting the Millennium Development Goals is a fantastic opportunity utilising social media and those ideas. So in some presentations I go through a whole gamut of the MDGs, but the one I'm going to allude to today is MDG 4, okay, to reduce child mortality. I'm going to show you a quick clip here from the Gates Foundation, and then that'll help set the precedent of what I'm talking about with this one.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Cool, so there we go. That's just a quick video from the Gates Foundation. And one of the topics and issues we look at is immunisation, in particular for polio at the moment. So polio is just one of those stepping stones for getting people out of extreme poverty. There are very few people in the world still contracting polio, but it's right on a knife edge at the moment. Basically, containing polio isn't an option. We have to eradicate polio so that it's done and dusted forever. So far this year, there's been 123 cases of polio. It's the lowest ever. We've never been this low for polio. Yet there's a shortfall in funding from the Global Polio Eradication Initiative of almost $1 billion. And so 94 million children are going to miss out on a vaccine this year. So it's kind of like we're so close and it may just slip through our hands. And so this is why we're involved in a campaign called the End of Polio this summer across Canada and also the US, the UK and Australia. And of course, utilising social media presentations and that sort of thing. I'll come to that a bit later on. But that's just one example of the MDGs and how we're working towards that. Yep. So the next graph here, Simon says, thank you very much. The next graph here is a good one as well. So this one shows us that for each of the Millennium Development Goals, which can be tracked, in 2009 we were behind on each of these goals. Okay, so yep, fantastic things are happening, we're making real progress, but there's still more that we need to do. And in particular, I mean, you have a look at MDG 5, which is to reduce maternal mortality, new mothers and mothers giving birth. Way behind on that one, okay? So again, this is just a quick example, a quick reminder of, yeah, there's lots of great stuff happening, but we're not there yet. Another thing that we cover in our presentations is looking at effectiveness. Remember, we're trying to increase the number and effectiveness of people taking action to end extreme poverty. Now we have a look at things such as good aid and bad aid. Now this is an example of bad aid, and there's something in this photo. It's in the school of the Highlands of Guatemala, where I was teaching once upon a time. But there's something in this photo that's an example of bad aid. Anyone want to have a guess what that may be? Most people say it's the dodgy guy standing up in the room. But that's Sergio, my friend and the teacher. We'll leave him alone. Any ideas? Most people will also go for the crappy pictures in the back, and I agree, but that's not it. The thing was with this school, I would do like a 5-hour loop hike and come in a couple of, about once a week. And every time they're always looking up at this really terrible, horrible blackboard with nasty chalk. So I said, hey Sergio, mate, what's with the whiteboard in the back of the room? So yeah, no, it was a donation from America. I said, well, that's good. Well, why don't you use it? No, I did. It was fantastic. He wasn't speaking an Australian accent either, but anyway. And I said, well, why don't you continue to use it? It's like, oh, those special pens. They can't get whiteboard markers up in the highlands of Guatemala. So it's not that people didn't care. It's just that it wasn't the right thing for the needs of the people, and no one had bothered to ask. Hey, do you want a whiteboard? No, got no pens. Okay, good job. We'll think of something that's more appropriate. So this is what we do: is we aim to not only tell people about the topics and issues, but also get them to analyse the way that development's done. And one of the other things is that we have 3 major reasons for optimism. The first one is that we know what it takes. There aren't too many mysteries around how to end extreme poverty. We know the things that work really well. The next one is that it's affordable, that there's enough money out there to do this. So if we have a look at the funding gap, of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the GPI, at the start of this year it was over $1 billion. Yet in the world we somehow managed to spend $3.5 billion on hair loss treatment. Now, I can probably survive without my hair. I'm happy to concede defeat on hair loss if it means that no one ever gets polio ever again forever. Because once you've got rid of polio, it can never come back. It would be the second human disease to have ever been eradicated. Another good one in the stats department. Please click everything. There we go. Well, is access to clean water. We spend twice as much on bottled water than it would cost to have access to clean water for everyone in the world. But the real doozy is this one. According to Jeffrey Sachs, a UN economist, it would cost us $160 billion to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. That's a lot of money. But when you compare it with about how much we spend bailing out our financial institutions and banks during the global financial crisis, then yeah, we could probably afford peppering up the MDGs if we wanted to. So there's enough money out there. And the third reason for optimism is that we can do this together. It's about not just one person or another, it's about poor people themselves, it's about famous people, powerful people, and people like you and I to all play our role to see an end to extreme poverty. And again, this is where the smallest tweet can actually make a big difference. So that leads beautifully onto this last little section of what can we actually do? What are the tangible actions that people can take? I mean, it's pretty scary out there because there's 1.4 billion people who live in extreme poverty, and then there's you as one person. It's kind of like, where do I start? It's all too much. But at the Global Poverty Project, we say that there's a bunch of things that people can do. Should we stop doing that? It's not just about giving money. There's loads of different ways that people can take action. And the thing is that, people always think, oh, I've got to give a donation to help the poor. But it's not. It's things like learning, talking, volunteering, buying, and shouting. And in particular, shouting is the one that we'll focus on a lot today. But for now, I want to throw a debate your way. I want you guys to have a bit of a chat about this one. Can we really make a difference in the world with collectivism? Signing an online petition, sending a tweet, putting a Facebook update, that kind of stuff. If your birth date is on an odd number date, actually, what do you guys call it? Uneven? That's so prejudiced to even. If your birth date is on an odd number date, I want you to say, yes, we really can make a difference, and you have to argue that point. If your birth date is on an even number date, or unodd, however you guys want to call it, I want you to say, no, we can't make a difference. It means nothing, it's no good. Okay? So, again, introduce yourself to the person next to you and have a bit of a chat around that. You might be too agreeing, you might be too disagreeing, whatever. What do you reckon about that question? I'll give you 2 minutes to have a chat on that one. So odd was a yes, even was a no. Another 30 seconds there, folks. Didn't want to mention the K word. Didn't want to mention the K word.
Yeah.
We maybe can try the light. It is quite dark right now in the sunset.
Okay.
It's the switch. It's not the upper and down. Alrighty, folks. Yeah, that should be good. Cool, so in 5 seconds. Here, Eki, Üç, Ish. I'm not spitting on people. Anyone speak Kyrgyz? No, neither do I. I can just count to 5 and show off. What do you reckon? Who was a no, whether you liked it or not? What good arguments did you guys come up with?
Well, we wanted to be optimistic, but we said the only real issue would probably be the fact that trends are kind of changing all the time, so people may talk about something today, but then tomorrow get distracted by something else, so that it would basically require a lot of energy to keep their interest and their attention focused.
Cool, so I have to paraphrase this for people in the Hangouts. Maybe if I can paraphrase that by saying the depth of activism could actually be so superficial and minor that people aren't really getting involved in the topics and issues because they feel like their job is done.
Right.
Is that okay? Yep, that's a good point. Anyone else want to throw one out there for no? Doesn't make a difference? So I don't have a taser and I'm going to like nail you or something with it if you say no.
You never know who's generating the information. You don't know if it's reliable or not.
Yeah, for sure. So we sometimes, quick, click this. Okay, done. Yeah, it was sent from the Russian mafia to make sure ice cream sales are cheap. Like, people don't engage with the topics and issues. No, actually, I shouldn't say that in a live hangout. They have great ice cream, by the way. But no, sometimes, yeah, you don't know. You're not going deep enough into the issue to know if it is effective or not. And you could be doing more harm than, like more hindrance than help in some of those comments. For me as well, one of the things that I kind of struggle with sometimes is it can breed apathy. Because people, okay, click, done, oh, I'm good today. I've saved the book today. I've made sure penguins can walk around freely and that kind of gear. I'm done. And then you're maybe taking them away from like that tangible, some more tangible, in-depth action that they might have taken if they didn't feel like that their job was done with one click. So that's a couple of things. What about the yes? Yeah, we can make a difference with clicktivism. Or if I convince you all that it's that it's no good.
I think we're actually sharing more information now, and we're reaching places that we normally wouldn't be able to reach. And just by clicking on something, you're somehow educating and you're becoming engaged, and then you're sharing it, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of hard to ignore the things that are happening without activism.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can probably summarize that by saying access to topics and issues. You can't be the Iranian government and just mow down a whole group of people because you know the ramification of that is people are going to be hitting you from all kinds of angles, or it's going to be broadcasted or something like that.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned the Iranian regime in particular. I directed a campaign for some very close friends held hostage by the Iranian regime, and in that case, there were so many levels at which activism was really key. People in Iran, voices are being repressed, and that's an extreme example. But many of them are in prison, so absolutely cannot communicate in any way directly. And we were able to be voices for those people and make sure they were heard even when they couldn't communicate directly. And also, I think, it was mentioned before, like the policy level. I mean, there were, these friends are American citizens, and there was no communication, no diplomacy between Iran and the US, but the Iranian regime monitored absolutely everything we put online and actually communicated directly with me often, so that and the fact that they watched, like to them, it made a difference. If we got a lot of likes on a YouTube video, they were on it trying to cut it down. Or like if we got a lot of signs on a petition, or if we got tons of follow, like whatever it was, they were watching every clip. So
yeah, absolutely. And these are the kind of topics and issues that would have been swept under the carpet or only been accessible to such a small group of people who would have been very active and vocal, but you can get this broad spectrum of support.
And I think, the global scope was so key because it was easy for both sides, like Iran and the US, to claim that this was a dispute between them. But it was, for us, we built this campaign that showed, no, people around the world care about this. This is a global issue about human rights, not about your disputes, right? So that was, and we could show that, look, we have supporters in Brazil, we have, and that was really.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I mean, it's almost like now sometimes we can bypass governments or bypass the United Nations on a personal level with some of these sorts of things. Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
If you want to talk about collectivism, you have to talk about Egypt. You had the revolution. The whole thing was organized on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think the reason why it was effective was actually the collectivism was translated into real life organizing. They were using it to set up demonstrations.
Yeah.
Because they weren't able to do it.
Yeah.
So
So
I think that historically that's the big collectivism.
yeah, if I can paraphrase that one for people on Google Hangouts as well, it's that stepping stone to have effective action and to be able to orchestrate that in a meaningful and effective way can be done through collectivism. If that helps summarise it. I mean, it's a never-ending debate, and I'm not here to say that there's a right and a wrong, but it's something. It's good to hear both sides of the argument and be aware of these things when we are, making that click. Maybe checking our sources of information or how effective it's going to be, or knowing that you are really part of something that will be utilised in an incredible way. I'll share with you one of those examples later as well. So heading back to our broad ranges of actions that you can take. And like I said, probably the biggest one that we can take, particularly with social media, is that form of shouting. This is where you not only make a difference for yourself, but you get other people involved as well. So it was much, much harder to do that once upon a time, unless you had a loud voice or held a position in community and that sort of thing. These days, everyone can shout with quite an immediate and large network. So this is the one they're going to focus in on today. And of course, when we're talking about learning, there's lots of ways that we can learn. There's a bunch of books and resources and all these sorts of things out there that help us to know about the topics and issues in more depth and to be able to research them. And then learning also on another scale. Sorry. Few clicker dramas this evening. Good to see the books again. Paul Collier's Bottom Billion is a beauty. It's looking at an economic perspective of these sorts of things. Learning more, as I was saying before about the Social Bright organisation. These guys, we can not only learn about the topics and issues more, but we can learn about the effectiveness of how we can take action as well. So there's a lot of stuff out there for learning around social justice, social media for social justice. Then of course we can talk, and this goes beyond conversations at the pub, which once was, that was the telegraph system for all information. Unfortunately you don't have to be at the pub anymore, or you can, but you can also do this as well. You can get on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, these sorts of things. You have ready-made arguments for you that you can just pass on to others and have a chat to people about them. Another great way is through sharing. I helped run the Youth and Schools program for the Global Poverty Project. When I heard of a young person taking action, I'd post it up on there and say, hey look, the students are getting their purple pinkies fingerprinted so that they can write their name and send a letter to Prime Minister Harper saying, we care about ending polio, and here's my little fingerprint to prove that. And then you share that, and then other young people see this and go, okay, cool, I'd like to do that, and they go off and do it. And they might share it with someone else, and they see it, and that gets done. So it really is the amazing network of stuff that can happen through shouting. Facebook applications as well, all these sorts of things, from mobile phones and different technologies. And I really want to bring in this one as well, because Google Plus, I was at a Google conference recently, talking about Google Plus and how we've just started to utilise this technology. Now, for us, the presentation is a really important tool for our organisation, but it's hard work to organise an evening like this, to get people out of their homes, to have to come, so I'm really appreciative of the people who are here. it's just hard work to make sure, you know, that 5 minutes before you leave home, oh, it's raining, or I can't be staffed, or whatever. You know, you can make a lot of excuses, whereas using some of these technologies, you can get more of your audience in without having to travel or without having to set up the infrastructure and those sorts of things. So we see this as a fantastic tool. And then with this technology, as I said, talking about that digital model, okay, so in probably Kenya, within the next year or 2 years, they'll have the bandwidth to do it and probably the technologies so they can start doing, instead of me talking about extreme poverty, they can be talking about extreme poverty because they're the experts, they're the ones who live in that environment. So we see the potential of something like Hangouts as a phenomenal tool. And I think Google Plus is one of those things where it's, you know, Facebook is how you engage probably with your family and your friends. Twitter is how you get privy to a bit of information. And then we kind of see Google Plus as where you can do your research and go into depth into those topics. Because you throw a topic up into Google Plus, and it not only comes up with your search engine, but it'll link to Facebook pages or what's happening, like absolute relevant time of information and things that are happening. So that's a cool tool that I would encourage people to get more familiar with and to utilise. I think it's heavily underutilised at the moment, but it does have great potential. Cool. We gave our first Hangouts on Air presentation quite recently, back in May. Actually, it's not that recently, it feels like it was. But yeah, and we hit an audience of like 180 people, including the people that were in the room. 180 people from all different walks of life. People were calling in and asking questions from New Zealand. I think the girls from Europe somewhere, from Australia, and I did this all from New York. So great potential there. I'm now just going to start getting into a couple of the campaigns that we run and how we utilise social media around those campaigns. But better than me explain it, for this campaign called Live Below the Line, I'll let a mate of mine explain it to you.
Oh, those lines, can't avoid it, they have power. From finish line.
Last one. So thanks, Hugh. Sorry Hugh couldn't be here himself, and I'm his crappy replacement, but all good. So that's one of two major campaigns that we run called Live Below the Line. We encourage people to live on $1.50 of their food each day for 5 days. Now the beauty of this campaign, it was back in May, but the beauty of this campaign is that it's such a conversation starter. You know, how would you do it? No, that's impossible. You know, I drank too much coffee, or I couldn't even afford, you know, more than 3 chips, or whatever it is. And utilising social media for this campaign is unbelievable. It goes wild. It goes absolutely viral every time we run it. We started with about 1,000 people who took on the challenge in the first year, and it's over to 13,000 people 2 years later. It's a bit of a fundraiser as well, and it's raising over $2 million around the world just with people taking on this challenge. And the conversations are great. You can just imagine, now what I did is I did a 1,000-mile journey from Portland, Oregon up to Whistler and back for about 5 weeks whilst doing Live Below the Line challenge. So I was living on $1.50 for all of my food. It meant a lot of oats. But the thing was, the reason I did it is people go, oh, well, Darcy, you're an idiot for doing it, and I probably am. But it was a great stepping stone because I chose to do that. People who live in extreme poverty don't choose to live on less than $1.50 a day, and they do it for more than 5 days or 5 weeks. They do it forever. But the thing was, the response that I had with my blog and Facebook and Twitter and these sorts of things, people really engaging with the topics and issues of extreme poverty because it had real-time flavour and it had a perspective of different avenues, etc. So that's one campaign that we utilise our social media for. The other one is the current campaign that I'm on at the moment around Canada, and it's called the End of Polio. And so going back to the collectivism idea, is that we have a global petition, and it's that's an entry-level point for someone who wants to get involved in the topics and issues. So that's maybe their starting point. And then when they learn about this topic, they can be moved along a spectrum of more effective advocacy or more engaged advocacy. once you've got them in that realm. And the wonderful thing about this is that we're able to set up things, you know, where you can directly contact your health minister. Well, the other day we ran one for the Prime Minister to encourage him to go to a meeting with Bill Gates and Ban Ki-moon and others. And people can just like, okay, yep, I'll jump on that and send that to my local member of parliament. So we're just making activism easier, but still just as engaging as you would probably traditionally do it. And we did this, we ran this campaign last year around the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. 5 million people reached through traditional medias and others. We ran a huge concert, well not huge, a big concert with 4,500 people. People were watching it live, people were tapping into it in all sorts of different ways. And the outcome of that was a $118 million commitment to, at the Commonwealth Heads of Government towards polio eradication. Social media wasn't the tool that did it, but it was one of the important tools. So it's not about giving up on all the other ways that we run campaigns, it's just one of those really important avenues to make sure that we hit it from all angles. And some people will take the social media one, some people take a traditional, some people rock up to a concert, but it's that combination that makes a huge difference. So this year we're ramping it up. This is the last thing I'm going to say for this evening, and this one is the epitome, I think, of using social media for social justice. We're holding a thing called the Global Festival. So this is a 60,000 person concert in New York, in Central Park, with Neil Young, Canadian and polio survivor, Foo Fighters, the Black Keys, Band of Horses, and Canaan. All are combining on stage to hold this massive event around advocacy and awareness. It's a free but ticketed event. And the way that people get their tickets is that they have to become a global citizen. So that means you sign on to this online platform, and actually I don't know if the mobile phone apps come out just yet, but it's very, very close. You go online, you register, and you have to earn a certain number of points to get in a draw to receive free tickets to that concert. That might be reading an article, it could be watching a video, it could be commenting, it could be signing a petition, any of these sorts of posting things on Facebook and Twitter. So people are not only engaging with the topics and issues, but they're forced to share it, I suppose, as well, and do that advocacy. So this is a really amazing event that we're putting a lot of effort behind for the 29th of September this year with those artists. I'm going to share with you a last video. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. Last video now. Quick question?
I'm just wondering who sponsors the event.
A whole realm of people. Yep. So the artists are doing it for free, except for costs and all that kind of gear, without an appearance fee, I should say. A bunch of philanthropists and people that believe in this as being a significant way to get people to interact with these topics and issues and to see significant change in the world. A quick video, and then I'll wrap it up.
The fight for justice has never been easy, but human history has always been shaped by courageous action and a vision for a better world. From the civil rights movement to the end of apartheid, what started as small riots of the heart have sparked and spread a passion for change, building a social movement that changed the world forever. At the Global Poverty Project, our goal now and has always been to see an end to extreme poverty within our lifetime. We started by creating a presentation on the end of extreme poverty, a roadmap and a vision for our generation. We delivered it all over Australia. It took off. From Australia to New Zealand, to the UK, to the USA and Canada. Then our Live Below the Line campaign saw more than 20,000 people in over 74 countries around the world challenge themselves to live on the equivalent of $1.50 per day. Together they raised more than $5 million for charities all over the world, and most importantly, changed their perspective on issues of extreme poverty. Then last year we launched a massive campaign called the End of Polio, and together with our partners it worked. The Gates Foundation and 4 governments committed over $118 million towards the end of polio. We've seen that our global community has grown a generation of global citizens who realize that we rise and fall together as a planet. This is just the beginning.
Good evening. Something enormously important is happening half a world away from us tonight. The nation of Egypt is probably changing forever, and it may not stop there. What appears to be a revolution is underway. Egypt has shut down the internet, which helped fuel this in the first place, in a nation where over half the population is aged 30 and under.
In this moment, we wondered, how can we use the same power of connection to support a movement for engagement, for action, for justice? And so we developed Global Citizen, a platform that harnesses the power and reach of mobile technology to amplify your call for justice. Global Citizen will connect you with some of the most powerful and innovative organizations out there, with campaigns creating important, sustainable change for the world's poor, and with opportunities to take real social action anytime, anywhere. Then, as world leaders gather in New York for this year's UN General Assembly, we'll harness the power of our collective voice at a massive advocacy event on New York City's Great Lawn in Central Park, bringing together top artists like Kanon, Band of Horses, the Black Keys, Foo Fighters, and Neil Young with Crazy Horse. We'll celebrate progress fighting extreme poverty, support life-saving child health intervention, and urge our leaders and fellow citizens to do more on this issue. You can go into the draw to win tickets to this once-in-a-lifetime event by signing up to become a Global Citizen and earning more than 3 points by learning, sharing, or taking action. We need change makers. We need your voice, your vision. Sign up now at globalfestival.com and help us create a world without extreme poverty.
Cool. So there you go. I mean, it's either globalcitizen.com or globalfestival.com. They kind of interrelate with each other. So there's the scene. We don't do this so that we can just go and see Neil Young and others go and play, but we see it as the end game is to end extreme poverty. And we're trying to get there as fast as we can. And we believe that this is a critical tool to do that, accompanied with social media and these sorts of tools everywhere, anywhere, all the time, that kind of stuff. So that's about it, folks. The last question we love to leave with people is this one. And for some people, it's just tweeting or Facebooking. And for other people, it is really taking on a campaign and running with it. And that's what I've got to say to Kelly. Her involvement in this campaign for polio this summer would never have gone as far as it has without people like Kelly, who not only just take on those kind of quick clicks, but really do the background work behind it so that people can make those quick clicks and make a huge difference. And there's a never-ending scale to this, but I greatly appreciate Kelly and other people's work because, you know, it's one thing to set things up, but it has to be heard. So it's pretty phenomenal. An outro video, and then would love to hear a bunch of questions from you guys.
There are many, many, many things that we can do that are simple, that will make a massive difference.
I've committed to doing my bit by helping out in Fiji and putting in fresh water for villages, helping build roads, helping educate the people over there.
Helping knitting jumpers for orphans in Russia and Romania.
My commitment to ending extreme poverty is to educate my peers at school and talk to my teachers and everyone around me.
The important thing about the GPP is it's not about personal donation, it's about personal education and personal involvement.
Today we invite you to be part of the global movement to end extreme poverty. This journey starts with the realization that we can all do something. Join the movement by registering at our website and learn how your contribution can enable the global community to achieve our goals. Talk about the issues, learn more and take action. But together we can see an end to extreme poverty within our lifetime.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys. And we might sign off on Google Hangouts. Thanks to anyone who joined.